Obviously, Hilchos Shabbat is a very important topic and very large in terms of halacha. It's um, has a lot of halachot, but I want to try to focus on the topics that seem to me to be the most expansive and relevant. And we'll see where that goes. And then we can follow your questions at some point. But I want to start with Muktzah, and I want to just say one or two words about why I'm starting with Muktzah, and that is that Muktzah is, I think, very often a misunderstood area of halacha of Shabbat, because people say, you can't turn on lights because it's Muktzah, you can't drive because it's Muktzah, but we use the word Muktzah maybe just to mean something that you're not allowed to do on Shabbat, but really Muktzah is a specific category, and it's important to realize that Muktzah is a category of Hilchos Shabbat that is rabbinic, that the Chachamim made up, that's the Rabbanan. So the thing that the Torah says is not to do milacha, work, and there's 39 categories of what's defined as milacha, and Muktzah is something which the rabbis made up, and I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about why they might have done that. But before we discuss why they did it, let's discuss what it actually is, and then maybe we'll be more prepared to understand why they made the law. But the first thing that you need to know about Muktzah is that the law of Muktzah means that you can't handle something, you can't move something. So Muktzah doesn't mean you can't do something, and it doesn't mean you can't touch something. It does mean that you can't move something. An item which is Muktzah is not allowed to be moved. That's one thing. Another thing is the word Muktzah. The word Muktzah means set aside. The best definition I can think of is set aside for non-use. It's like put to the side over there. As opposed, the opposite would be something which is prepared for use, something which you plan to use. Now, something you plan to use doesn't need to be out. It could be the forks in your drawer are prepared for use. You have in your mind that you're going to use that whenever you want to eat, and you put it in the drawer, and then when you're ready to eat, you take it out. So those forks in the drawer are ready to be used. Something which is Muktzah is something which you don't expect or plan to use. Someone put in the chat that you can't hear. Okay, good. Okay, good. So that's Muktzah. Let's talk about what is Muktzah. So if you look at, there's one very important principle about Muktzah, which is the principle that is sometimes called migu for short, but the longhand is migu de itkatzai beven hashmashot itkatzai l'kula yoma. That something which is itkatzai is like the word muktzah, something which is set aside for non-use, something which is muktzah beven hashmashot at twilight, meaning on Erev Shabbat, it's katzai l'kula yoma. So typically, something which is not expected to be used, the critical moment is this moment that Shabbat starts. At that moment, anything that's muktzah is muktzah for the whole Shabbat, even if the circumstances change. So that's just one important principle which applies to all the categories of muktzah. But if you look at any book about muktzah, it's going to say the categories of muktzah, because there's multiple categories of muktzah. And I also will go through some of the main categories of muktzah that help you understand what is or isn't muktzah. The first is muktzah mahmat gufo, something which itself is inherently unusable. So a rock on the floor is Muktzah Machmat Gufo. No one expects to be using the rock. Now you might find a use for a rock on Shabbat. You might just need something to, I don't know, like the leg of your chair is short and you find the perfect rock to balance it out, or your papers are flying around and you have the perfect rock to weigh it down. But an ordinary rock on the floor, no one expects to use it. Sand on the beach is muktzah because which is an interesting category. And of course, I chose this picture, but I didn't choose the halacha. Sand is muktzah because no one expects to use it. Sand in a sandbox is a toy. So a toy is not muktzah, it's expected to be used. So the sand on the beach, no one really looks at the sand on the beach like the whole beach is one big toy box, but it's sort of like dirt on the floor and it's muktzah. A raw potato is muktzah, machmat gufo, because since you can't cook it, there's no use that you expect to be able to do with that raw potato. So the same thing would be true, of course, about any raw food which cannot be eaten raw. Raw meat is muktzah. Anything that you can't eat is muktzah. That's muktzah machmat gufo, something which has no presumed use on Shabbos. Second category is muktzah machmat chisaron kis. Muktzah machmat chisaron kis is an interesting one. Something which would not normally be moved because it's valuable or it's delicate. So, something that you leave behind the glass, no one expects to be handling these things. Let's say over here you have a sitter and then you run out of siddurim in your house, you need a sitter, so you say, I'll just grab it from the display case. So the answer is you cannot do that because no one expected to be using this, even though inherently it's usable. But since you wouldn't plan to use it, a painting on the wall, you don't expect to handle it on Shabbat. Like it's there and you don't want it coming down. And I saw a great example of muktzah, which I really appreciated, which is matzah, because it reminded me of what I personally do on Pesach, which is I take all my shmura matzah and I put it on the highest place I can find in my house, usually above a bookcase, because you don't want your matzahs to break before the time of Pesach. So let's say Shabbat is Erev Pesach, so you put your matzahs on the top of the bookcase. So those matzahs are muktzah machmat chisaron kes because you do not want anyone, they happen to be expensive, but it's not really the monetary value, it's that it's delicate and you don't want anyone handling it. You might have a kitchen knife which costs more because you have $100 kitchen knife, but it's not muktzah machmat chisaron kes because you use it all the time. It's not so delicate. It's not like you put it away in a place where no one touches it. If it is an expensive knife that you don't want anyone handling, and you put it away in a case, then maybe it is muktzah machmat chisaron kes. But muktzah machmat chisaron kes means that because of its value and that it's delicate, Benji, I knew you can't eat matzah on Erev Shabbat for another reason because it's now eat matzah on Erev Shabbat, but that's fine. If Shabbat, okay. Let's move on. So we have muktzah machmat gufo, something which has no use. Now we have something which has a use, but you do not plan to use it because it's expensive or delicate. Then we have another category, which is muktzah machmat mius, which is something which is disgusting, something which is smelly, is muktzah machmas mius, that no one wants it around, so you can't handle it. That would be like a dirty diaper, spoiled food. And this is a very interesting category because it has like a sister principle, which is almost the opposite, which is that things that are gross are muktzah, but if something's really offensive, you're allowed, and this is called the category of graf sharei, like a dirty diaper. You're allowed to remove it because of the dignity of your Shabbat. You don't want to have to endure that. So you're allowed to remove it, but it's still muktzah. So it's important to understand that if you have a dirty diaper, you can take it and dispose of it because the Chachamim made this allowance to get it out of here. But you could just move it sort of one time because it's graf sharei. But fundamentally, it's something which is gross. That itself makes it muktzah. So we have, just to review, we have things that have no use, things that have a use, but you don't plan to use it because it's expensive, it's valuable, it's delicate. We have things that are disgusting and therefore are presumed to not use them. If they don't plan to use it, and then you have this exception that you're allowed to dispose of things which are offensive. Okay. Then we have a category called Muktzah Machmar Isor, something which is prohibited. So a cheeseburger is not kosher. So since it's not kosher and you're forbidden from using it, it's muktzah. So you can't handle it. You can't serve it to someone who's not Jewish because it's muktzah. Even though it looks like it's fine food, you can't eat it. Of course, you can't eat cheeseburgers, but you could move it and give it to someone, but it's muktzah on Shabbos because you have no intended use for it. They have another important category of muktzah machmas isur, which is a candle. And here it's very important to understand that a candle, a flame, it's asur to move a candle on Shabbos because you're afraid it's going to go out. So since the Chachamim are worried that the candle will extinguish if you move it, you're not allowed to handle a flame on Shabbat because you might extinguish it, which would be a malacha. And that leads to the next category, which is basis l'davar ha'asur. Basis l'davar ha'asur means anything which is supporting something which itself is muktzah, it's also muktzah. So the flame is muktzah machmas isur because you're not allowed to handle it because it might be extinguished. The candle is a basis to the flame. The candlestick is a basis to the flame, and the table is a basis to the candlestick, which is a candle, which is a support to the flame. So now the table is muktzah. What does it mean for a table to be muktzah? You could still use a table which is muktzah. You're allowed to use a table which is muktzah because you're not moving it. Muktzah means you can't move something. So here, you can't move the table, but you can eat at the table. But let's say you want to move it. Let's say you want to redesign your house on Shabbat morning for you have guests and you want to move the tables around. So your table would become a basis. And remember, we learned in the beginning that if it was muktzah when Shabbat began, it's muktzah for the entire Shabbat. So even though the flame went out, still the table remains muktzah throughout Shabbos. So you can't move the table. If you have a tablecloth, that tablecloth will be a basis and muktzah, and you can't take the tablecloth off if you want to replace it. Because of this, there's a minhag a strategy to avoid this problem. So a lot of people make sure to put the challah on the table before lighting the candles so that when Shabbat starts, the table is not only a support for the candles, but the table is also a support for the challah. And with a basis, if you're supporting two different things that are one's muktzah and one's not muktzah, the candles are muktzah and the challah is not muktzah, then the table would, as long as they're of equal importance, the table would not be muktzah. So people who light Shabbat candles on the Shabbat table might put the challah on the table before Shabbat, so that the table is a basis. It's called the basis l'davar ha'asur u'ledavar ha'mutar. It's a support to something which is forbidden and permitted, and therefore the table is not muktzah. Other people, light candles on a separate table, so you don't have to think about it, which is what I do. But that's the most basic solution to the basis of the candles. Other things could be a basis. So, for example, a drawer could be a basis. If you have a drawer, which we call it a muktzah drawer, if you have a drawer which has muktzah items in it, or muktzah and non-muktzah items in it, so then the drawer will be a basis as long as they're of equal importance. If the muktzah is more important, then it will be a problem. If it's equal or less important than the non-muktzah, then the drawer will not be muktzah. Another thing about a basis is that it's only if you meant to put it there, you did it on purpose, but if you forgot it there, it's not a basis. So let's say you have nothing on your table but your phone. You put your phone down right before Shabbat on the table, planning to put it away, but you forgot and left your phone on the table. So now the table is a basis to the phone, but you didn't mean to leave the phone there for Shabbat. So therefore it's not a basis. Now you can't move the phone on Shabbat, but let's say someone, we won't say who, somehow it gets moved. So now the table, you would say it was a basis when Shabbat started, but we don't say that since you didn't mean for it to be there when Shabbat started. Okay, so these are really the main categories of muktzah. You have muktzah, machmat gufo, something which has no use, something which has a use, but you don't want to use it because it's expensive, something which is prohibited to use, machmat isur, something which was disgusting and you wouldn't want to use it. These are all things that are muktzah. As you can see, these categories in many ways have a lot in common. They're all things that you would not plan to use on Shabbat, but they all have a little bit of a different wrinkle to them. There's another category which is really a very, very, very significant category in and of itself, and actually has some unique halacha to it, which is kli shemelachto leisur. A kli shemelachto leisur is an object which has a use, and the main use is not permissible. So you have a pen, which the main use is to write, which you can't do on Shabbat. You have a phone, the main use is to use the phone, which involves things you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. This is called the kli shemelachto leisur. It's a little bit hard to conceptualize this category, but it's something, it's a little bit less muktzah than all the rest of the objects because it has a use, but the use is not allowed. And a hammer is a kli shemelachto leisur. The main thing you do with it is to build. A frying pan or a pot is a kli shemelachto leisur because you use it for cooking, which is not allowed. Scissors are kli shemelachto leisur because the thing you do with it is cut, which is a malacha. A fan is muktzah, is a kli shemelachto leisur. The main thing you do with it is turn it on, which is not allowed on Shabbat. So actually, this is a very large category. A lot of things in our homes, are in the category of kli shemelachto leisur. And the Chachamim made a very big exception to the rule of kli shemelachto leisur, which is that it gave two exceptions when you're allowed to move a klisha malachta l'isur, and this only applies to a klisha malachta l'isur. It doesn't apply to something which is actually muktzah. So a klisha malachta l'isur could be used to use in itself. Sorry for the typo. So l'tzorech gufo. So what would be l'tzorech gufo? Let's say you want the object itself for something permissible. You want the phone to be a paperweight to hold down papers. You have a hammer and you want to use it to open nuts. So that's permissible. So since you're using it itself, you're allowed to move it. You're allowed to use klisha malachta l'isur l'tzorech gufo. This is not super common, but it happens. What's more common is l'tzorech mikomo, that you want to use the place that the object is in. So let's say you left a pen on. This happened on Shabbat. We left a pen on the couch on Shabbat. And now you want to sit on the couch and you don't want to sit on a pen. So this is called a tzorech mikomo. You want to use the place where this kli shemalachto le'isur is. So what you do is you pick up the pen and you remove it from that place. That's called mutter l'tzaltel. You're allowed to handle it. L'tzorech gufo u'mikomo. You can move it for itself or its place. Now here's the trick. This is a very important trick, that you can move it once. So if there's a pen on your couch, you're allowed to move the pen to make way for you to sit down there. Where do you move the pen to? Who can guess? Where do you move the pen to? The answer is that you can move it wherever you want. You can pick it up, walk across your house, and put it on your desk. There's no rule that you have to minimize your moving of the pen. You can pick it up and move it to a good place where you want it to be for Shabbat. But once you get it there, you can't move it again unless you need that place. So you should think in your mind, where do I want this pen to be for the rest of Shabbat? And I'll bring it there. What people who don't know the halachot might do, and this is what we did in our house, I'm not saying who did it, you take the pen and you brush it off the couch onto the floor. So that was permissible, but now you can't move it from the floor for the rest of Shabbat. So you didn't have to just push it on the floor. You could have picked it up and moved it to a place where you want it to be for the rest of Shabbat.
So Rabbi Shawitz, you don't need to move it with a shinoi?
You don't need to move it with a shinoi because you're allowed to move it. You're allowed to completely pick it up in an ordinary way and put it somewhere else.
All right, thank you.
It's permissible to be moved one time. To move it out of the way, and the only time you can move it again is if you want to use that place where it ended up being. But Moshe Feinstein was asked, let's say there's a pen on your Shabbat table, and you're having guests. So you're embarrassed to have a pen on your Shabbat table. But Moshe said you cannot move it because it's not in your way. It's just that you don't like it being there. That's not called l'tzorech mekomo, so you're not allowed to move it. But if you want the spot where the pen is, because you want to put a plate there, you can lift it, carry it away, and put it away. When it comes to pots, so it's a good question, because I mentioned before that pots are klisha malachto le'isur. So here, here it's a little bit complicated because let's say you use a pot to not to cook but to store food in. So so now it's not really a klisha malachto le'isur because it's used for isur and heter. Here it's a little bit complicated because it's usually used for cooking, but it's also used for storage. So, so it's a little bit debatable whether it's a klisha malach to l'isur, but if you're using it for storage, you're definitely allowed to use it for storage on Shabbat, because that's called the tzorech gufo. You're using it for itself. So if you have a pot with with rice in it that you made for Shabbos, so now you're using it as a storage container, and you could take it out of the refrigerator, put it on the hot plate, put it back in the refrigerator. You're using it as a storage the whole time. It's a tzorech gufo. The only question would be if it was empty, if it becomes now muktzah again. Yeah, so you're allowed to warm food in a pot on a blech, but you're still using it tzorech gufo, even if it's considered muktzah. Okay. Kitchen scissors actually is interesting. Kitchen scissors are not muktzah because you use them like a knife to cut food. Ordinary scissors are muktzah because you use it to cut things up. Okay, so this is klisha malach d'lisser. This is a very big category. I would say like half the things that are muktzah, that we call muktzah, are in the category of klisha malach d'lisser, and these two allowances are very useful. Okay, so now, I think now, what I like to do is, if people have questions, you feel free to shout it out or to put in the chat about specific objects that are muktzah. But, why did they make up this rule of muktzah? And it's a tough question, and there's so many different types of things that are muktzah. It's hard to give one explanation that explains them all, and maybe there are multiple explanations, maybe different categories of muktzah, each have their own reason. Like it seems obvious that if the rabbi said don't handle a pen on Shabbos, they meant, well, if you handle it, you might write with it. So it's an ordinary gezerah. Don't handle it because then you might do the thing that you don't want to do according to the Torah. That's a good answer. It's just that it doesn't really explain most things that are muktzah. Yeah, so flour is muktzah. I'm sorry, just Benji. Flour is muktzah because you can't use flour. So, like if you're cooking right before Shabbos and you look around your kitchen, so some of the ingredients that you left out are muktzah and can't be put away. And some of them are not muktzah. And, like anything that's usable that you can eat, is not muktzah. But raw eggs is probably muktzah. Most people don't eat raw eggs. Flour can't be eaten raw. So it's muktzah. If the sugar's out, obviously sugar is not muktzah. So exactly. Okay, so I'd like to just show you a couple of sources about the reason for muktzah, and also maybe a theory of my own. But I think there's sort of a transition from the general to the specific and back to the general when it comes to the presentation of Shabbat. And I want to start from the very beginning. And that is, let's see where I put this. I didn't put it in, but if you look in the Torah, at the way that the Torah presents the laws of Shabbat, it's very general. This is the beginning of time of the evolution of Shabbat. The Torah says, "Lo ta'aseh melacha." Don't do melacha on Shabbat. Very general. It doesn't tell you anything about what's defined as melacha, and it doesn't really tell you a lot about like the spirit of Shabbat or like what the Shabbat environment is supposed to be like. It just says lo ta'aseh melacha. The Chachamim made it very specific by telling us what specifically the Torah had in mind, and that's the 39 malachot. The Mishnah says, what does the Torah mean by malacha? Well, I'll tell you, there's 39 categories of malacha, and then there are subcategories, and then you have all the intricacies of the halachot of Shabbat, which is the Chachamim trying to define exactly what the Torah meant by malacha. And then if you go to, let's say, the Navi, and Yeshayahu talks about Shabbat, he talks about it much more as, I meant to put the pasuk in, but you shouldn't, it's the way that you speak and the way that you carry yourself and the way that you walk and the environment that you create. And the Navi, I think, and this is true in a lot of cases, but especially in Shabbat, that the Navi is taking a step back and saying, like, what's the purpose of all these specific laws that you're busy observing, and what's the goal of it? And on that note, the Rambam picks up, and I want to show you what he says. Yesh dvarim, the Rambam says, Shehina surim b'Shabbat, aval pi she'inam domim l'malacha, ve'einam mevi'im lidei malacha. There are certain things that the Chachamim forbade, which are not domeh to malacha, and they don't lead one to do a malacha. Usually when the Chachamim introduce new laws, either they're saying this is forbidden because it's similar to what the Torah forbade, or they forbade something because it can lead you to do a malacha. But there are some things on Shabbat that the Chachamim forbade, which is neither. Why did the Chachamim forbid them? Mishum shene'amar im tashrid mishabat raglecha asot chavatzecha b'mkadshi v'ne'amar v'chibadato me'asot rachecha mitoch chavatzecha v'daber davar. Meaning, the Navi says the thing that you should do on Shabbat, refrain from business, honor it, don't follow in your ways, do not pursue your business, speak of it. Meaning, the Navi introduces this idea of a general attitude for Shabbat. Lefikach asur la'adam mahaloch b'chafatzav b'Shabbat. Afilu daber b'hem. You shouldn't go to work. You shouldn't look at work. You shouldn't talk about it. Kagon shedaber im shutafo ma'im kor l'machar. Let's say you talk to your partner. What should we sell tomorrow? Oh, ma yikneh. Oh, hey, yibneh bayit zeh. How should we build a house? This is all forbidden based on the Navi. And this is the Rambam in the 24th chapter of Hilchos Shabbat, the opening. And then in that same chapter, he continues a few halachot later, and he says, and I'm showing this to you because it's in this context that the Rambam presents Muktzah, Asru Chachamim L'Taltel Miktzat Dvarim Shabbat, K'derech She'V'Osa B'Chol. The Chachamim forbade us from handling certain objects on Shabbat like you would do on Chol. Why? Amru. Uma im his hiru neviim v'tzivu shelo yehei hiluchach b'Shabbat hiluchach b'Chol. If the Navi said we shouldn't walk on Shabbat like we walk on Chol, v'lo sicha Shabbat k'sicha Chol, and we shouldn't speak on Shabbat like we speak on the weekday, שנאמר ודבר דבר, קל וחומר שלא יהיה טלטול בשבת כטלטול בחול. So קל וחומר, the things that you handle on Shabbat should be different than the things that you're handling on a weekday. On a weekday, you're handling Muktzah. So the way to make Shabbat different is to not move Muktzah objects. כדי שלא יהיה יום חול בעיניו. So it shouldn't feel like a weekday. Because you might spend the whole day picking up things, moving your furniture, moving stones, because what do you do when you're sitting home, you're not at work, you're sitting in your house, you're looking around what needs to be done, and you're thinking, let me do it. I have to move this couch. Now I have 4 hours in the afternoon to do nothing. Great time to do it. And you undermine the goal of rest. So basically the Rambam is saying to expand on the Navi and the Torah in Devarim, which is there's a spirit of rest. So that cannot necessarily be achieved by just refraining from these very specific categories of malacha. Therefore, the Chachamim expanded a lot and said, don't even handle any of these things that are not pertinent to the things you're supposed to focus on Shabbat. That's one reason the Rambam gives. A second one is, secondly, certain things that you might move on Shabbat, you might end up doing a malacha, like I mentioned before. The ode, and a third reason the Rambam gives, whenever you have three reasons, you know that there's no one reason that's really answers everything. The ode, mipnei shemiksat ha'av einam ba'alei umaniyot, ela b'teilin kol yemehem, k'gon ha'teilin b'yoshvei koranot, shekol yemehem hein shoftim b'melacha. There are people who don't work. So all the 39 malachot categories are the categories of work. What's work? Planting, plowing, harvesting. Some people, they never do that. They just do nothing. They just sit there and the whole week, they don't do any work. All they do is sit there pressing buttons. And this is really, like almost prophetic. Like no one does the malachot of Shabbat during the week. We all do work which doesn't involve necessarily the malachot of Shabbat. It wouldn't be a shvitani keret. You wouldn't even realize it would be like work from home day. Wouldn't feel like Shabbat. By keeping muktzah, now basically no one can work. Therefore, the Chachamim introduced this prohibition of muktzah. So basically, after muktzah was legislated, basically, if you ask me what could you not do on Shabbat, the answer really is you can't do anything except for the things that you're supposed to do on Shabbat. Like the only things you're allowed to handle and touch are the things that you use for Shabbat, like for your meals, for your davening, So it's almost like a total reversal where originally everything was permissible except for certain specific things. And now everything is forbidden except for the things that you actually need for Shabbat. So here's the Rambam. He gives three reasons. I think they're all, have truth to them and they're all important. And I think in certain ways you can recognize that in some ways Muktzah is the least important of the laws of Shabbat because it's only the rabbinic edition. In other ways, it really captures some of the essence of Shabbat by not handling all the things that are Muktzah. I want to just mention one other theory. I'm not sure if someone else thought this before me, but I'll just give you the Ravid also says, that he thinks that it's all to prevent us from carrying outside without an Eruv. Okay. It's not pertinent to us so much, but you can see where that came from. And the last thing I think is that the essence of Shabbat, I think, is preparation. The essence of Shabbat is it's a day that you prepare for beforehand. That it's not a coincidence that you can't prepare food on Shabbat and you're supposed to eat on Shabbat, and the way to prepare for Shabbat is to cook for Shabbat. I think that it's the essence of the day is that there's a time when you don't do anything to provide for your needs for the day, meaning you can't do anything on Shabbat to make your Shabbat comfortable, but the comfort of Shabbat has everything to do with what you did before Shabbat to prepare for Shabbat. It's like Me'in Olam Haba, just like Olam Hazeh prepares us for Olam Haba. Once you come to Olam Haba, which is the destination, you can't do anything to make your Olam Haba any better. It's too late. The same way, Shabbat, it's a day that's supposed to be prepared for beforehand. And literally, the word muktzah The opposite of muktzah is muchan, prepared, because you're supposed to do hachana for Shabbat. Whatever's not specifically prepared for use on Shabbat is automatically unusable. So in other words, what I'm suggesting is that muktzah amplifies the need to prepare for Shabbat. And it says if you didn't prepare it for Shabbat, then you can't use it on Shabbat. Let's say you usually use a rock as a paperweight or as a bookmark, so that's fine. So get the rock before Shabbat, pick it up from the floor, put it on your desk and say, this is my bookmark, and now you have a bookmark for Shabbat. But you can't say, oh, I'll go out and get it on Shabbat, because if you didn't prepare for Shabbat, you can't use it. So perhaps muktzah means things that are not muchan. If you didn't prepare for Shabbat, you can't use it. And I think that this idea of preparation for Shabbat is obviously important, and I think it's also underlies a very interesting and famous discussion in the Gemara, which says, Amru alav al Shammai hazaken, kol yamav haya ochel l'chvod Shabbat. Shammai hazaken, that means the founder of Beit Shammai, right? The person Shammai, everything he ate was for kavod Shabbat. Muktzah behema na'eh omer zil Shabbat. On Sunday, he finds an animal, nice animal. He says, beautiful, perfect animal. I'll save it till Friday. I'll shecht it and eat it on Shabbat. Matzah acheret na'eh menu. If he finds another animal, which is nicer, meniach hashniya ve'ochel harishona. Then he would eat the first one and save the second one. So everything he ate during the week was kavod Shabbat, because he was always eating something which was less good than the one that he was saving for Shabbat. And Hillel, the Gemara says, had a different attitude towards life in general. Hillel hazaken mida acheret hitalo shekol maasav l'shem shamayim shenemar baruch Hashem yom yom. He would always be thinking about God and having trust in God. So Hillel, if he had an animal, eat it today, and God will provide for tomorrow. So they have different attitudes, but I think Shammai's attitude, I mean, they're not debating about Shabbat, they're debating about how to see life, but Shammai shows us the importance of preparing for Shabbat the whole week, and it's possible that everything we use on Shabbat should be muchan. So Muktzah highlights the importance of preparing for Shabbat. So our theories about why Muktzah exists, either because handling these things can lead to doing a malacha, handling these things might take away from our spirit of rest on Shabbat, or it might undermine our need to prepare for Shabbat. But generally, Muktzah means there's multiple categories, but generally the principle of Muktzah means that anything that you didn't expect to be using or handling on Shabbat, you're not allowed to handle on Shabbat at all. And the important category of Kli Shemalachto Le'isor, something which is usable but you're not allowed to use it on Shabbat, have these two important allowances, which is that you could use it if you're using the object itself, or if you need the place, and then you can move it for those purposes. So there's my summary for tonight, and we'll continue next week. If anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to ask now or during the week. I'll say now, an early Shabbat Shalom for this coming week.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Shabbos.
Thank you for coming.
So just one quick question. So the concept of Shinoi, when would that apply?
Oh, well, it's a good question. Maybe we should come back to Shinoi. Usually, Shinoi means that